Welcome to livingpianos.com. This is Robert Estrin, and this is a continuing series that we're having so much fun with reading music versus playing by ear with Scott Houston, the piano guy. And I want to say hi to Scott and say hello to everybody.
Hello, Robert. Nice to be with you again. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And Scott has got a lot of books and he's got all kinds of resources. Piano in a Flash, being able to play by ear is his specialty and it's helped thousands of people. So you should check out his resources. But today is why playing by ear is essential for classical pianists. You might think, why would you even need that? You got the score, isn't that enough? Well, let me put it to you this way. Whether you take the music from the written score initially or you take it by ear, ultimately, all playing is by ear. It really is. Here's the thing. It's so easy if you learn a piece of music and you commit it to memory as a pianist to just let the tactile memory. If you've ever found yourself as a classical pianist playing the piano and you realize in the middle that you didn't zone out, you're zoning back in and you don't even know how long you've been playing on autopilot. You go, how can this be? Well, there's a certain amount of motor memory where your hands just go. Now, this is not good. In fact, not only is it dangerous because you can easily take a wrong turn, like if you have a sonata movement where there's a recapitulation that goes in a different key from the exposition, you can find yourself either leaving out half the piece or getting back to the beginning and get all fouled up. But more than that, I've noticed this. A lot of times when I'm at a concert, and I find myself, even though everything is fine in the performance intellectually, I can't concentrate on it. I find myself zoning out, and more often times than not, that's when the player has a memory slip. Because if you're not engaged in the performance like you yourself are composing it, then the audience isn't engaged either. That's the secret of captivating an audience, no matter what music you're playing, is being engaged with it. Now, the other thing why it's essential for a classical pianist to be able to play by ear is that I don't care who you are and how brilliant you are or how experienced you are. If you're a classical pianist playing solo music from memory, you will have memory slips. It happens to everyone from time to time. None of us is perfect. Here's where playing by ear is so invaluable, because if you forget which note it is, but you can hear it in your head, you can then play the correct note or notes until you get back on track. I've actually had the circumstance in performance where suddenly I find I've forgotten something. Maybe I'm on the wrong finger on a note and I don't know where I'm going and I just feel my way. And many times I actually feel my way and I listen back to the recording of the concert and I've actually played all the right notes. Even though I technically had a memory slip, I was able to flesh it out. Now, other times might not be so fortunate, but it makes only a slight blip in the performance if you can play by ear to get back on. Otherwise, it can be a disaster. Now, Scott, I'd love to have your reflections on this. And more than that, so many classical pianists I know have never played by ear and have no clue how to even approach such a thing. So maybe you can give some pointers, some tips, how to get started playing by ear.
Sure. And, I think at the beginning, Robert, it's important for everyone to realize that, everyone has this thought of, my Uncle Lester could play by ear. He got hit by lightning and it just came to him, right? It just, hallelujah, he plays, right? And I think everyone thinks that's this absolutely God-given gift. And I guess my response to that would be, if you think it is a God-given gift, then God gave it to everyone, right? We all have the ability to do that. I always say to somebody, if you could ever, remember tunes, you really can play by ear in some way. It's a very human thing to do. Now, take it from the broad into some more specifics, I think it's also critical to remember, and this is probably really applies to a lot of the people, that we're talking to today that are really serious classical piano players, that you've got to get to a point mentally where you realize that the black dots on white paper that you consider music are really just a recording of music. They're not the actual music. The music is what you're playing. And so sheet music is no more music than I don't know, than a book is speech. Maybe that's the good analogy to use, right? And so with with that in mind, I guess a couple different thoughts. One, I think it's helpful at the beginning if you're trying to say, gee, can I play by ear? Think through, use the ability you have as a good classical piano player and or a great notation reader or a good notation reader. Use that skill to your advantage by when you're reading a score, paying attention to what chords is that score spelling out. Because really the step between I do 100% reading and the other side of that coin, which is I'm 100% playing by ear. I could just sit down and hear it all. It doesn't just happen with no steps in the middle. The middle step is I understand chord changes. I understand, it's the theory that we've all learned, of working through a tune and working through the chord changes. So I think the middle step to just start down that path for someone that thinks it's such a mystery is to be paying attention while you're reading a score and saying, gee, I hear this moving from, a tonic to dominant, if you want to think of it in a strictly theory way, or if you're really just looking at it, say, gee, this arpeggio here. Let me switch to the piano shot. I'm got an arpeggio that's spelling out something. Well, quit reading the 6-7 separate notes of that arpeggio and realize that you just spelled out a D major chord, right? Something like that. And I think the more that as you're working through tunes and you're working through scores, you can kind of imagine the score as what it looks like on underhand, I guess, not as individual notes, but as a chord progression. And I think that's the biggest tip I could give someone who has never done it at all, is to start thinking in terms of chord progressions instead of individual notes. And I think that can be a huge help.
That's good advice. And more than that, I think it's really important not to be afraid to just try things, because you know what? You're going to experiment. You'll hit right notes. You're going to hit notes you don't like. And as you do it, you're going to refine what you do. You're going to find more and more tools in your tool chest of riffs and chord changes and voice leadings and, that just work for you. And that's how, some of the great improvisers, you listen to Oscar Peterson, you think, how can he possibly invent a solo? Well, he's got a whole bag of tricks that he was able to employ to craft a solo. And it's more than that. It's the deep harmonic understanding, the underpinnings. So that's why playing by ear is essential for classical pianists. And you know what? It's a lot of fun, too. Yeah, listen, I want to thank you, Scott. Scott Houston, again, The Piano Guy, series on PBS television, books, Piano in a Flash, and you can contact him with the links on the screen. I want to thank you again in the continuing series in playing by ear versus playing from reading the music. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Again, I'm Robert Estrin here at livingpianos.com, your online piano store. See you next time.